Excuse me, you mind not farting when I'm trying to save the world? Yeah, I've given up trying to do Christopher Eccleston's voice. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the two-part adventure Aliens of London and World War III, written by Russell T Davies and is directed by Keith Blanc. Like I stated, this is not only a two-parter, it's the first two-parter of the revived series. And as well, along with that, it deals with many concepts extremely new to Doctor Who, something which has never been really tackled upon. We got close to it with Ace in Survival, but with Doctor Who in the 21st century, in a century now dominated by hard-hitting drama, it just made so much sense to tell a story like this, which deals with the aftermath of a companion travelling off with the Doctor, as we see this impact Rose's family, her friends, to her boyfriend Mickey, and just show the world on its own terms. It also introduces the Slitheen, a recurring monster not in Doctor Who, but in the spin-off medium of the Sarah Jane Adventures. So that's very bizarre in that sense. Now, this is the DVD of it, and as you can see, it has a Dalek on it, because this story pairs it, because each of these vanilla have three episodes in it, and it compares the two-parter with Dalek, and you know, Dalek is obviously the more popular story, so put Dalek on there. But I've also printed off my own classic cover right here. So let's put these together, shall we? 1, 2, 3. There you go. Yeah, this is a really great cover. I got this from Christopher DVD covers, Doctor Who DVD covers, and he does a fantastic job at these artworks. This is probably one of my favourite ones that he's done. It just looks so fitting with the rest of the classic series. Here's the spine, if anyone's interested, and here's the back, which I've put there. Also includes the episode Dalek, which is really shame because I really wanted Dalek to be like its own thing on the shelf, but sadly these vanilla releases pair 3 episodes together, so it kind of annoys me in a sense in that way. But yeah. So the story is set on modern day Earth. Now this wouldn't become like an issue until much later on down into the series, but new Doctor Who, the revived series, especially the Russell T Davies era, has an issue of always going back to modern day Earth as a setting, which does kind of feel a little bit redundant. Like, it's not like with the unit stories where the assemblation of the cast can still go to different locations, and you know, the unit base is a interesting location. When we head back to Earth, especially in like the Rose Tyler era, it's always like a block of flats or something boring like that, or something very, not very boring, but very mundane, which kind of gets really old after a while. And this would be a signal, shall we say, for things yet to come, as we've gone from a modern day story to a story way distant into the future, a story then set in the past with Charles Dickens, and then we're already back in modern day. I mean, it does feel like Russell T Davies could have gone anywhere, but budget put him onto this story. Now, the story starts off incredibly powerful. The story sets off with the Doctor and Rose landing back, and the Doctor proclaims that she's only been gone for 12 minutes. So she starts heading up. And probably one of my favourite moments of directing and music combined Keith Blanc, Keith Blanc and Murray Gold, who I haven't praised enough in this marathon series. Murray Gold is probably one of the strongest composers that Doctor Who ever had, and in my personal opinion, he might be my favourite composer. He does rely a bit on motifs, but as somebody who loves motifs, I'm a sucker for them, so the music really gravitates towards me. But anyway, you've got like this nice, almost samba piano music, as if like Rose is going to meet her family and it's all going to be excited, but nobody else is going to be like a thing, and it's all just like this like strange kind of like feeling to it. And then the camera pans past this like pillar with a sign on it as it catches the Doctor's eye, and the music then suddenly takes a dark turn where it goes, it has that like a noise. As it turns out that leaflet is actually a missing person poster for Rose. She hasn't been gone for 12 minutes. She's been gone for 12 months. She's been gone for a whole year, which means that this story is technically set in 2006. Wrap your head around that. And get a fantastic scene in which Rose, she meets her mother, and her mother, I can't remember the actress who plays Rose's mother. I'll remember her name next time we talk about her. But the shock on her face, that it's just so goddamn good. But this scene is mainly just to set up part of the story, and that is dealing with the consequences of travelling with Doctor without just, like with other companions, they just travel off the Doctor with no concerns about their own present lives. But here we are actually getting the ramifications of that, something very unique to Doctor Who, and it's an idea which, let's be honest, should have been tackled a lot earlier in the classic series. It's one of those stories where it's one element of the story. The story isn't about this, but a majority of the plot is. And it feels like this story is something that needs to be done in Doctor Who, and something which I think Russell T Davies really gravitated towards, the impact of the family dynamic. Not to say that it has to be done. I mean, like, every other companion prior to this hadn't had this kind of storyline, but it is very nice to see that there are ramifications for at least some companions, specifically Rose. Now, Rose was a very hard-hitting companion in terms of trying to get into her. I didn't like her in her first story, Rose. She was getting a little bit better in The End of the World, and in The Unquiet Dead, she was kind of a backdrop with not really much to do. But here, Russell T Davies has returned to write for the character, which means that, sadly, Rose has become a lot less interesting again. Not that she has any more moments like she did at the end of Rose, but there are elements which I don't like about the character that sneer their heads over here. For like the abandonation of her mother, just like because she's just obsessed with the Doctor, which I get it, I get that the Doctor is this magnificent figure and stuff, but Rose seems either not to care or care very little about the ramifications of travelling with the Doctor and the emotions to her mother. In fact, the scene right after they cut off, we have a policeman like interviewing them, and Rose is just kind of has this like awkward like, I don't know, I'm just travelling. I mean to call. I mean, honestly, I'm sorry. Like, she doesn't care. She clearly doesn't care. We get a nice scene later on where the girls are crying and they hug it out. And Rose's mother is like, I still can't believe that you can't tell me where you've been. It's terrifying. It's horrifying. But the fact is that scene should have come before the scene with the police officer, because now it just seems like Rose is just crying because less about like she cares about her mother and more about this scene is over emotional in a sense, and she needs to make her mother feel sorry for her so that she can just get away from this. I just don't like Rose in this story. She just isn't that compelling of a character. This is a two-part story in a new series, which is a lot more jam-packed than your original two-parters in the classic series, because those were the shorter stories. They were the ones where you can get away sort of with less plot points and more character development. But here, these are now the longer stories, which is really bizarre. Which is a really bizarre thing to say. But now the two-parters are the ones with the most plots and stuff. So let's get into our villains. The Prime Minister, who is possibly Tony Blair, because Tony Blair was the Prime Minister at the time. He's gone missing, and so he has this really fat, I can't remember his name, has replaced him and these other really fat people. And originally they start taking the situation seriously as a giant ship comes down and crashes into Big Ben and falls in the Thames, as news reporters state that they found a body and they're taking it to a specific location. Actually, let's talk about that scene first. The Doctor goes to investigate this so-called body, as in this top secret hospital base, shall we say, a scientist by the name of Kotisha, who would become much more prominent in a later series, specifically Torchwood. Yes, this is the same Toshika who would appear as in Torchwood. I believe they actually explain why she's a more like the technical side on that one, and here she's more like a medic. Because Torchwood, for some reason they made her the computer girl, which I think might be a little bit racist, but anyway. We get this fantastic scene, and Keith Blanc directs it phenomenally with the overbearing of purple lights as this creature, the body, wakes up and is banging on the door, and it's like a horror film. This scene reminds me so much. It's almost like a shot-for-shot remake of the Doctor's resurrection, his regeneration scene, or at least just after his regeneration, in the TV movie. Somebody put a side-by-side comparison of those, because they are identical, if you don't believe me. They are literally like the exact same scene. It's really bizarre. And the Doctor goes into with a group of soldiers. I believe their unit actually gets mentioned here, which is really strange, because, you know, this is supposed to be like the new Doctor Who for a new generation, but yet we get references to classic series. And it turns out this body is a space pig. I really love when the Doctor sees it for the first time, and he's just so glad. He's like, oh, hello. And this thing is terrified. It runs off, and the soldier shoots it. And the Doctor gets them pissed. He's like, what do you do that for? It was scared. It was scared. That moment is just so good. But it does have an issue with it, which can go out throughout the entirety of the story. In fact, this is actually the more lighter of the criticisms, where in other scenes, which we'll talk about, which is what this story is mainly known for, and that is the contrast, the juxtapositions of its serious moments and its silly moments. I mean, sure, this bit isn't too bad with the Doctor, the fact that it's a space pig is a little bit silly, and take it seriously when it's shot and the doctor's trying to like shout to the soldiers like, what did you do that for? But you does get the idea. It's like this is actually an innocent creature, and soldiers and all that believed it was an alien. And the first thing they thought was it's a threat, despite clearly being an innocent creature. It's later explained that this is actually a earth pig that's been mermaidized into looking like an alien, so that humans will get more scared. It's aliens pretending aliens. But that issue of its contrast between its sillier moments and its serious moments is so jarring in this story, and the main aspect of this comes with the form of the Slitheen. What the hell was happening there? The idea is very politically charged. It's basically Russell T Davies stating that the Tories basically treat this Parliament, treat the government as if it's like their own little fun little experiment. Something which is not only sadly still true, but is actually kind of more relevant than it has ever been. And I actually really like this idea of these aliens disguising themselves as humans and taking over Parliament and treating it like it's some sort of farce. And they just absolutely like laugh at the idea of how easy it is to manipulate humans. There's one bit where a general goes into I can't remember what it's called, like the big circle table where all Parliament meets, and he's like, basically it's like he says stuff like, we are suffering one of the greatest crises in our time. What have you done? Nothing. And these three politicians are just like laughing, and they're just like, I thought I was Prime Minister. Oh, that's a shame. I was having so much fun. And the acting is very sinister at that little moment. And later on, like literally seconds after the scene when the general proclaims he's going to take over command, the acting gets really intense, really sinister, like that, and the like intensity, and it's really serious, and we also get a really creepy thing with the head. And I think a lot of people know what I'm going to be talking about when I talk about the silly parts of this, which ruins any atmosphere the story was going for. For some reason, Russell T Davies thought it was a great idea to have our villains fart every 2 and 3 seconds. I mean, I get it. Don't get me wrong, I get it. The idea is that these politicians are these silly, ridiculous, farting creatures, and the fact that nobody, apart from a handful of people, even realizes that something strange is about them, is just so sadly fitting. But the farting is just such a silly concept, and it makes it so silly that when it does whiplash back into more serious content with our villains, it's so jarring that it takes you out of the story, and you're just like, what the hell am I watching? I was just watching these 3 aliens laughing and farting, and I'm shaking my booty, which is actually a pretty funny line now that I say it. But that is just it's so contrast to the really serious and dark moments later on, especially when he rips out his head, and you've got Harriet Jones, who is a fantastic character in his story, witnessing this, and you see her looking through through the door frame, as you just see a gleam of purple light flowing into her eye, as her mouth is just like, ah, she's shocked, she's just horrified at what she's seeing of these alien beings coming out using skins like clothing. It's horrifying. But just seconds ago, they were farting and making silly, ridiculous jokes. It's... what? It's stupid. It's hilariously stupid. But I will admit, I do have a soft spot for it. I mean, I get it's so ridiculous, but you never see a story like this in anything else. You will never see another Doctor Who story where the villain's silliness and the villain's like seriousness are so contrasted against one another that it's just unbelievably jarring. And I will give props for, like, Doctor Who prior to 2005 had a reputation of being this silly, ridiculous with the monsters in foam and in cheap sets. And Russell T Davies turning to his production team and going, right, I want you to make these giant green aliens that go inside fat people and make them fart like every 2 seconds. That is just such a bizarre and strange moment. So anyway, let's talk about the cliffhanger, because this is actually the first cliffhanger of the revived series. If you don't count the one in Rose, in which Rose leaves with the Doctor, I guess that kind of counts as a cliffhanger, if you want it to. It's a very light cliffhanger, but it's a cliffhanger nonetheless. Now, Russell T Davies really wanted to bring back the cliffhanger, and here he does a fantastic job with it. What he has done is give us not one, not two, but 3 separate cliffhangers, as the Slitheen are basically rounding up each of our characters. The Doctor goes into a room full of like the best scientists known to man about alien invasion, and the Slitheen have actually given them all these ID cards which will electrify them, and they turn it on, and the Doctor's in pain as all the other scientists are like fizzling up, dying, as the Slitheen reveal themselves and laugh their heads off. Back with Rose and Harriet Jones, who make a nice little team up. They actually find the Prime Minister's dead body as one of the Slitheen's corners them in the Cabinet Office and reveals itself and kills one of the secretaries there. Back at Jackie Tyler's flat, there's a police officer who wants to talk about the Doctor because she called his helpline about aliens, and she's basically stated about the Doctor in the TARDIS. That's how the government found out the Doctor is in modern day Earth. And this police officer is like, anyone to do with trouble is trouble. And it turns out he's the Slitheen cornering Jackie in her kitchen in a very powerful scene. And the directing is so strong here. It's so very, very strong here. It just occurred to me that Keith Blanc is the only director... Oh no, wait, I tell a lie. I was going to say he was the only director who directed the modern episodes of the 9th Doctor, but that's a lie. Anyway, that cliffhanger is incredibly powerful. Sadly, it's ruined by the sense that right after the cliffhanger, before even the credits roll, there's a next time trailer, which after BBC got huge criticisms for, it was decided that for 2-parters or even 3-parters, the next time trailer would be either omitted or edited in a way which doesn't give away where the characters live or die in the next episode. So that was a strong little creative decision. So the aliens have revealed themselves. The cliffhanger gets resolved pretty quickly as the Doctor, because he's not human, can actually substand from the electrical charge of the ID cards, and he puts it into the Slitheen's, one of the Slitheen's neck chains, which actually electrocutes all Slitheen, resolute in all cliffhangers. Rose's and Harriet Jones's plotline for the first half of this story, of this episode, is just basically a Benny Hill sketch as the Sardines chase him around 10 Downing Street. The Doctor's also getting chased around by these aliens in 10 Downing Street, but this time the more the military is, he's more downstairs. He tries to convince the military that the Prime Minister is actually an alien in disguise, but they clearly don't believe him and they chase him around 10 Downing Street in a really funny moment. Jackie Tyler and Mickey Smith also have like their own little moment where Mickey takes Jackie back to his flat. Now let's talk about Mickey for a moment, because there's another criticism I have with the story, which even to this day, I mean, it's one of those things I thought about when I first watched the story back in 2005, and it's something which has always bothered me since every time I rewatch it. What is up with everybody treating Mickey like a dick? I mean, I get Jackie Tyler. She originally thought that Mickey was murdered Rose, and you know, Jackie's one of the like really tough heads. So when it's revealed that he had nothing to do with it, she won't apologise. It's like, well, how was I supposed to know? Rose does give him a sort of a sorry, but it feels very half-arsed, especially considering how it's only one scene, and any time she gets, she tries to go with the Doctor as quickly as possible. And then we get the relationship between the Doctor and Mickey themselves. Why does the Doctor take an instant dislike to Mickey? It's one of the few criticisms that I can actually pinpoint with the Ninth Doctor. And that's less to do... Christopher Eccleston has done nothing wrong here. That is a Russell T Davies thing. There's no reason for it. It's not like Mickey is... he is incompetent in the way that he is portrayed as a comic relief character. There's a scene in which TARDIS dismaterializes and Mickey tries to follow him, only to crash land and have a really silly moment where he like falls on his ass essentially. But Rose describes it as like he's just winding you up, but he's really a dick to Mickey, and I honestly don't know why, apart from the reason that Russell T Davies wanted a comic relief character that everybody could just be like, oh, look at him, he's just the silly, annoying character. Which, I get that's the point, but Mickey has done nothing in the story to deserve this. Sure, he acts a bit pedantic, and he's like, especially there's a scene where he's like, he tells Rose, it's like, you're stuck on Earth with us now. Your doctor boyfriend, he's gone travelling off, but he's justified in doing that. The story is both justifying him and making him this silly, this competent character. It's really, really jarring. It's just, that's one of the elements I can pinpoint down without any sort of well, maybe thought about it. A part of the story I really just don't like is the treating of Mickey in this story. It's just so odd, especially the Doctor, out of all people. It's like, I get it, like this is the more tougher Doctor and Mickey's supposed to be a more silly character, but you never see a scene in which the Doctor is witnessing any of the silly moments of Mickey. It comes a bit off like he's jealous about Rose, despite Rose preferring the Doctor, clearly. It's just... Mickey, Noel Clarke deserves so much better. And this issue would then continue in his next appearance, which we'll tackle when we get onto Boomtown. That's a story for another time. So the Doctor gets caught up in the cabinet, and the final act is basically the Doctor caught up in this
room because there's this metal barrier. There's some really great confrontations between him and the Slovene. At one point, there's a really funny moment where he pretends that a glass of vinegar or alcohol is an explosive device, before leading into this really serious scene where he basically finds out that the Slovene family are out for profit, and the doctor's like, I'll give you a choice, leave now or I'll stop you. And the acting from both Christopher Eccleston and the main female Slovene in her human form is so greatly intense. But again, it does take away a bit from this scene when you realise that these aliens were only a few moments earlier farting and being really cartoonish in this exact story. And the Doctor then locks himself in. We also then get a lot more prominence on Harriet Jones, which I just realised I haven't talked about Harriet Jones at all in this vlog. She's one of those characters that everyone really likes. She's a comic relief character. She's played mainly for laughs, especially when she's constantly going, Harriet Jones, MP for Friday North. She just does that to everybody and nobody just cares. But she's a character that seems like, from what I can gather, everyone likes, but nobody, not even myself, can explain why. She's just something up. I think it's mainly down to the actress. Again, I can't remember what the actress's name is, but she's also the mother from Shaun of the Dead. And she is just so sweet. She's just so innocent. Like when she's like witnessing all of these horrible events of aliens ripping people's skin off them, and gets locked up in a cabinet with human skin, somebody's dead corpse skin in her hands. It's just horrifying, and you really feel sorry for her. But she also has a very tough head in a moment. One of my favourite scenes actually with her, actually I tell you what, there are some great moments with Harriet Jones which explains why she's such a great character. There's one moment, it's a small scene, in reality you could have easily cut it, but it's so good, in which the Slovene basically track down Rose and Harriet to a small office, and they hide, and the Slovene can smell them tempted. It's like, I can smell the old woman and a young girl full of adrenaline. And they find Rose, and as soon as they find Rose, literally the nanosecond, without even thinking about it, without even hesitating about it, Harriet Jones gets out and she goes, no, take me instead, take me first, trying to spare Rose's life. That is a side character. That is how you write a fantastically great small part for a role, for an actress. And I'm so glad that she gets more scenes later down the line, more stories later down the line in the series. Funny enough here, the Doctor claims that she becomes the Prime Minister, kicking off a new human beautiful empire, but in later stories kind of retcon that as that she was someone who was a pretty bad Prime Minister, in a sense. We'll talk about that when we talk about the Christmas invasion later on in the marathon. But yeah, Harriet Jones is such a likeable character. And this scene then in the office when they're locked in, we have one of the great emotional impacts where they're on the phone to Jackie Tyler, originally first getting attacked by a Slovene before killing it with vinegar, which I just noticed never actually plays into the conclusion of the story. The vinegar aspect kills the Slovene in Mickey's house, but it never goes anywhere after that. It's very strange, it's very bizarre. Anyway, so Jackie's on the phone to them and she basically like, Doctor, can you promise Rose is safe in your life? I mean, I've seen this life of yours, it's dangerous, it's thrilling. You might get a kick out of all of this adventure, but it's dangerous. People die. And the Doctor proclaims it's like, he comes up with this idea on how he can save the day, essentially. But he might have to sacrifice Rose to do it. And he goes on and he's on the phone and he's like, I can't guarantee, if we do it, I can't guarantee that your daughter will be safe. And Jackie's just begging the Doctor, no, don't do it, whatever you do. But Rose, so infatuated with the Doctor and kind of knows he is a saviour, people need to be saved. She's like, do it, even if it's at the risk of my own life. Do it. We can't let the Slitheen win and take over the world and let the world be destroyed. And the Doctor then confesses with Jack, he's like, this is my life, it's not fun and games. It's dangerous and it's a hard choice because nobody else would make the hard choices, leading into a much more darker characterization of the Ninth Doctor, which we'll see prominently throughout the rest of his series. But then Harriet Jones is like, it's not your decision, it's mine. I'm the only person here who's been voted by people to be part of a governing force, and I tell you to do it. So he contacts Mickey, again, really harshly. There's a bit where he's like, Mickey, I might throw up before I finish saying this, but I need your help. Doctor, why are you such a dick to Mickey? I don't understand about it. I really don't understand it. And he basically sends an ordinary missile, not a nuclear missile, but an ordinary missile to destroy 10 Downing Street, killing all the aliens on board before they can get the access codes for a nuclear strike, as they've basically convinced the public that there is an alien spacecraft above London with weapons of mass destruction, which is actually a reference to George W. Bush, who said that in Iraq they had weapons of mass destruction despite having no evidence. It was something that was said to try and push the military into Iraq to try and take down ISIS as swiftly as possible by making up lies to scare the public into another attack, essentially. Similar thing happens here, although the real world parallels are a lot less connected in a sense from that point of view. So the story ends with the nuclear blast hitting 10 Downing Street. And one of my favourite lines is when the Slitheen looks up and he's like, oh, ball. Love that moment. And we get a really nice scene in which Rose is with her mother and her mother's like, okay, I'm ready to listen. Hopefully we can have food, we can make food. What does the Doctor eat? Cottage pie. But the Doctor is like, I don't do families, I don't do stuff like that. I don't do family gatherings, I don't like doing domestics. And he basically, kind of a dark way when you think about it, convinces Rose to give up his family to travel with him. Rose quickly accepts, and he actually offers Mickey to join them, but Mickey is like, I can't handle your worlds, so I'm going to refuse, but don't tell Rose. And when Rose then offers Mickey, the Doctor's like, no, he's a liability, I can't have him on board, sorry. Which, that's very nice that the Doctor gets to ramify his meaningless dispute with Mickey, but Rose is like, we would be dead if it wasn't for him. The Doctor's like, it's my final answer. Rose is just like, because she doesn't know about the whole Mickey doesn't want to come, and the Doctor's saying this to basically spare Mickey's involvement. Rose is just like, no, sorry. Bye then. She's supposed to be our companion, the character we're supposed to gravitate towards too. Don't like Rose. I just don't like Rose. Sorry. And that's Aliens of London and World War III. Overall, To say it's a mixed bag is an understatement. It is so jarring. There's concepts that are absolutely amazing, gravitate towards the real world. It's real world influences really really gravitated towards. Especially they have real life news reporters from BBC and other news channels to represent, like, talk about like this news as if it's like a real event. Fun fact, one of the news reporters, one of the only, I believe, the only fictional one that is a character called Trisha Wells, who actually is the only character to appear all in Torchwood, Doctor Who, and the Sarah Jane Adventures, and she also reprised in a much prominent role in a Torchwood audio drama. And this would be a recurring theme in the Russell T Davies era of like the news reporting on alien events as if like they are real world events. So that realism, every time it tackles like the realism of this alien invasion and the realism of Rose's life, in a sense, works really well. But what I think doesn't work very well is that the silly moments. I mean, if the story was just silly with farting aliens, I think that would be okay. I think I could have gotten away with that. But the fact it tries to go, these farting aliens, then they're like the serious bad guys, it's just so... It's so weird. It's such... I mean, I don't know. I just don't understand it. But I will admit, I have a massive soft spot. You will never see a Doctor Who story like this ever again. It's so jarring. It's so confusing. It's so daring in a way. Remember, this is from series 1. At this point, Doctor Who still kind of had the reputation of this show with the silly sets and the silly monsters. And now you've got aliens who fart along around the place. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, the Slovene costumes are just absolutely fantastic. When they replace them with CGI replicas, it is kind of jarring. The CGI just really wasn't holding up on that day. But it allows the characters to have much more fluent motion. But the costumes, when you see the physical costumes, they're just so stunning, in my opinion. So yeah, that's this two-parter. Very schizophrenic in terms of my opinions. Some moments I absolutely love it. Some moments I just feel like it's too ridiculous to take seriously. But I have a soft spot for it. I can't help but like it. I'm sorry. So there you go. That's the Aliens of London and World War III. So join me next time when the Doctor goes to 2012 and goes into the vault of Henry Van Staten as he finds out that he has a living creature in his basement. So join me next time for Dalek and the lockdown short, Steve and the Scarf. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!